Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the top 5 things that make a really good tank. Now I've been leveling my healer a lot lately by dungeon crawling. I've also been trying DPS on my warrior. So I've been seeing a lot of pug tanks out there, and you can tell the difference between someone who might just be barely learning how to tank and someone who already has experience and knows what they're doing. So let's go over the top 5 things that make a really good tank. The 5th one, and at the bottom of this list, is knowing how to pull correctly. This means knowing how big each pack is, knowing which mobs pull with each other, how to do LOS pulling if you need it to, how to body pull if you get a pack coming through, or just your group potential in general. Doing something like over pulling is something that's a lot more common than it should be, just because people are used to being max level, really high item level, and then they go ahead and pull the pack that they're used to, but they forget that they're just learning how to play this new class, or maybe that their group that they're in right now can't handle that much DPS, so they have a really big group that lasts way too long. Healer runs out of mana, tank runs out of cooldowns, and DPS just can't get the mobs down fast enough, so it results in a wipe. So a tank that really knows the potential of your group and knows how to pull and when to pull is crucial. Another one that's really big, especially in the meta that we see right now with Mythic Plus and timed runs, is timing. So this means a tank that knows how to pace him or herself through the dungeon by doing proper chain pulling, by kiting, by keeping aggro on everything, by checking the healer's mana, by knowing the DPS potential of your group. Overall, keeping a steady pace through the dungeon so that you meet the timer expectations of that dungeon is very important. Someone who over pulls or someone who pulls too fast, or when the healer has no mana, is going to result in a wipe, and that wipe is going to be way more detrimental to your team than pulling a little bit slower. Third on this list is knowing how and where to position the mobs. So the number one tank rule that we always hear is face the mobs away from the group, but besides that, you have to make sure you place the mob in a good place for your ranged and your melee DPS. Make sure that with trash you do things like stacking on the casters or the ranged mobs so that everybody can cleave efficiently. You as a tank have to make your group as efficient as possible, and positioning and holding on to aggro has a lot to do with that, especially if there's summoned adds. If those adds bounce around, go to ranged casters, healers, that's going to be very detrimental to your group. So overall, knowing where to position the mobs and how to pick them up accordingly is very important so that your group can keep going through the dungeon at a very good pace. The second one, and honestly this one was fighting for first, and this is on everybody's list, not just tanks, is knowing mechanics. Now this results with boss mechanics and trash mechanics as well. It means not standing in stuff that's avoidable, not taking damage that you know you can avoid, not clumping together when you should be spread out, using cooldowns when you need to, using your trinkets and your smaller cooldowns like spell reflect or anti-magic shell. Just overall knowing the mechanics of the fight and how to anticipate all of the damage coming in. As I play my healer more and more, I notice that a lot of tanks just don't move. They grab a mob, they stand in one place, and they don't move, which results in them standing in poison, standing in fire, lightning, whatever the mechanics for that fight are. They just seem to ignore them and think, I'm a tank, I can take all this damage, the healer just has to push through it, when in reality, if the damage is avoidable and if you know the mechanics, you should step out. There are a total of 5 people in each group and they all need healing. Blizzard designs dungeons in such a way so that there is AoE damage going out, so that the healer has to heal everybody. So if the tank is too busy standing and stuff, the healer won't be able to keep everybody else alive. Now the number one thing that makes a great tank, an amazing tank, is knowing how to take less damage at all times. This results in keeping your active mitigation up as close to 100% time as possible, cycling through your cooldowns. A big one that I don't see enough tanks do is interrupting. Basically, if you don't interrupt that cast, it's only gonna hit you as a tank, so you should interrupt any cast that you see coming in. Knowing when and how to use your self heal, knowing to kite mobs if the affixes demand it, and educating yourself in general in every fight, be it trash or boss fight, is essential if you really want to take the least amount of damage as possible. The reason why guilds like Method and tanks like Sko can push endgame content with not as much gear is for this simple fact alone. They know exactly how to minimize the amount of damage that comes into them. They are fully aware that in a fight like Shade of Medivh and Karazhan, using physical mitigation is completely useless, and you should be using everything you can to minimize the magic damage. They know that in a fight like Watcher in Karazhan, you should also be interrupting as a tank all those fireballs coming in. They are fully aware of everything that they can do and every ability that they have that can minimize incoming damage, and they use it to to the maximum potential. So if you want to be a great tank and a tier 1 tank, you need to be fully aware of this. Use your anti-magic shell, your spell reflection, your interrupt, your physical mitigation ability, your magic mitigation ability. All of these moves that you have at your disposal, you have to use them at the appropriate time. You can't just have a set rotation you use 100% of the time. Every now and then there's going to be a curveball, and if you can adjust accordingly as a tank, you're going to be an amazing tank. You'll be able to pug mythics up to +10, you'll be able to pug heroic raids, you'll be able to reach a much higher level in PvE than you've been able to reach without doing this. That does it for this list. I hope it helps. I know there's a lot of people picking up tanking now in Legion, and now with 715 coming out tomorrow, I know there's a lot of people that have that tank alt waiting, and they're gonna go ahead, take him out of the shelf and start leveling him up, getting some artifact power in there. So if you found that this list helps, go ahead and share it with some newer tanks and people that can just take something from this. And if you have any additional tips or something I missed, go ahead and comment in the section down below. It's good to get a discussion going down there, so if you guys have any additional tips or insights, please put them down below. But that does it for this video, and as always, good luck tanking out there.